Hello painters and welcome everyone! With the release of the new Warhammer 40k edition, but mostly with the arrival of the new Leviathan box, Tyránids are again on the focus of everyone. Therefore today I chose to make a video on how to paint your Tyránids using the Kraken Hive Fleet colors. Let's go with the tutorial, shall we? I start by priming the miniature using Chaotic Red from the Army Painter. This brand will give us a nice color to work later. Next, I'm going to get my airbrush and apply some zenithal lights of ragged flesh. If we do it this way, we will naturally create some shadows, and because of the color that we use as a primer, it will work perfectly. When applying, make sure to cover the whole skin of your Tyránid from above, not worrying too much about the underneath areas. Also, if you're wondering why I chose such an off unit to paint and why it is already on a base when I usually paint them on cork, is because I bought it from the second-hand market. If you look through eBay or on other second-hand apps of your area, you can probably find some pretty good deals and save some bucks, so keep that in mind. Anyway, with the airbrush layers already applied, I'm gonna paint all the carapace and the claw using black as a layer base. Sadly, there was something wrong with my camera here, and it didn't start recording from the beginning of this step, but you get the idea. Just paint it black with a couple of thin layers until we have a solid base which we'll use to slowly work on the transitions later. After we have applied this layer, we can now begin to see some color separation, and the miniature is starting to take some shape. To continue, I'm going to get a medium brush and start painting vertical lines on the carapace, just as you are seeing on the video. I'm using corn red mixed with water to thin it down. You have to paint it more or less from the half of each plate, and as the paint is thinned down, it will not cover perfectly. That's why when it dries we are going to repeat this step, but you don't have to cover the exact same area. This way it will look more natural and will have a little bit of transitions. We can clearly see the iconic pattern of the Kraken Hive Fleet, but we still have a long way to go. To continue, I'm going to change my brush for a smaller one and start painting tiny lines of Mephiston red over a smaller area of the part that we painted earlier. Again, you will have to give it a couple or even 3 layers to make a smooth transitions. This time try to make the edges of the lines visible, because they would look cooler. And I know that painting red over red might sound kinda stupid, but this way we are creating a lot of harmonic variation, and even if it doesn't seem so, we are giving the miniature some contrast, which in the end will pay off. After this layer, now we really see the true colors of these space bags, but we have to increase the contrast even more. For that, I'm going to get Troll's Layer Orange and make some teeny lines over the red, focusing mostly on the most prominent edges, creating some sort of edge highlighting. But we also have to paint some lines over the rest of the plates. We could honestly avoid this step, but I find that a miniature works better when there's contrast in their colors. But of course, if you're in a rush, it's totally up to you. If I had to paint an army of these books, I couldn't do it exactly this way because it's too time consuming. I would probably use less colors on the shell and make the transition faster. It would be less refined, but I couldn't lose my mind after painting 100 fucking Armagons. Anyway, sorry for language, as you can see the main color is finished and it looks really cool. To continue, I'm going to paint the clothes using Mechanicus Standard Grey. I focus mostly on the edges, doing some edge highlighting, but as you can see on the video, I'm also painting some stripes and transitions. Don't worry if they don't seem to blend really well, because we will fix that in a few moments. This is just not to have a single color base. Also remember to paint the teeth with this color and not to let them pure black. As I wasn't completely happy with the transition from black to grey, I went back to a bottom black and painted some stripes to blend them better. Painting is an organic process, sometimes you make mistakes and you have to fix them, that's why it's completely normal to come back and forward. Now they look much better. After this, I'm gonna get the Shapty Bone and paint some highlight on the skin. Mix it with water to make it thinner and have smoother transitions, and start painting on the outer areas of the skin. If you are in doubt on where to paint, look at the mini from above and paint the upper areas of what you see. This way you are faking light coming from the sky. And again, if you're in a rush, this step is completely optional. I'm doing it only because I'm painting one Tyrannid, but if you are painting a whole army and you wish to avoid it, it's totally fine. It's a really subtle effect, but while painting everything counts. To paint the tongue, I simply use Squid Pink. Now it seems really bright, but again, it's intentional, and we'll fix that later. To paint the eyes, I apply a layer of white. Then I paint them with pale yellow, which, thanks to the white paints, it's really easy to do, and finish by painting the pupils with Mournfang brown. Alright, so now comes the funny part. With a medium brush, we're going to use again Mournfang brown to paint several dots at the beginning of the arms, simulating a leopard pattern. Try to make them irregular in their shapes, sizes and positions to make them look natural. Once you have finished with the big dots, get a smaller brush and repeat the process painting among the bigger dots and toward the rest of the arm, creating some kind of blending. This is really easy to do, it's something that gives your minis a lot of character. Personally, I love to paint this kind of details. After this simple trick, the miniature has stepped up a lot of levels. To continue, I'm going to get Carbon Crimson and start washing the clothes to give them a reddish tone, the eyes to create some shadows, the tongue, and the fleshy part of the skin that you can see on the articulation and the arms, simulating exposed skin. Well, now the mini is not that simple and plain. We are almost there, you've got this. The last thing I'm going to do with the brush is to give the Carapace a wash of black. I'm doing this for several reasons: to unify the colors, to make a smoother transition, and to create some shadows on the cracks of the armor. Well, and also because now it's too bright and I want it to be grimdark and terrifying. For the final effect, I'm returning to my airbrush and giving the whole miniature a layer of oil paint, more precisely brown. You can use any oil paint that you want. I'm using one from an art shop which I mixed with a lot of thinner to make it like milk density. What it matters is that you have to cover the whole miniature with this. If you like this kind of painting, I'm planning to do a video about oil paints that I think you guys will enjoy. The last thing we have to do is to remove the excess of oil paint. I'm getting a cotton tip, dip it into white spirits and gently rubbing across the miniature. This will achieve two things. The first is to push forward the shadows, making them deeper, and the second one is to give the miniature a grimdark look with that dirty effect. If you wish to know, the white spirits I'm using is the Tamilla Enamel Thinner, which we call in Spanish the 3 Bs, bueno, bonito y barato, which translates to good, nice and cheap. And that's the end of today's tutorial. As you have seen, all the colors blend pretty well and we got an amazing result. All you have left to do is to make the base of the miniature and add a top coat of matte varnish. Let's get to see the final result.